Go ahead and find a comfortable posture. We've got plenty of extra cushions and stuff, so if you need extra support or want to find new positions, go for it. Just taking a moment here. This might be the first time we've sat still today with intention, so just taking in what that feels like. We'll start with a brief body scan, and the meditation will begin and end at the sound of the bell. I really love to start with a communal breath, so if you'd join me in taking a breath in through the nose and out. 2 more, in through the nose and out. Last one, in through the nose and out. I don't know about you, but I often find by the end of the day, I can't remember the last time I took a breath, a breath with intention or a breath at all. So it feels kind of good to arrive into the body, into a meditation, breathing. We'll start with a brief body scan to just connect to the body, really sense through what might be coming up in the body today. Starting with the top of the head, and maybe we can approach this with the same curiosity or investigation that we are our hobbies that we just mentioned in our icebreaker. Being curious about what the body feels like. There's no good or bad, just sensing what's coming up right now. Starting with the top of the head. Feeling any tension sort of drift away from the scalp and the temples. Feeling your eyes soften in the socket. Maybe unclenching or releasing your jaw and your tongue from the roof of your mouth. As it travels down your neck, the tops of your shoulders, maybe doing a couple shoulder rolls would feel good, make you feel a bit more connected to the body. Easing tension down the back. Feeling the lungs expand with each in-breath and contract with each out-breath. Releasing any tension as we move down the back, wrapping around to the low belly, really letting the belly just be a belly. Let it soften. Let gravity hold it, not you. Feeling what the hips might be holding today. Seeing if you can breathe into any tension that might be there and releasing it with your exhale. As we travel down the legs, the thighs, the calves, your feet. Really feeling your whole body being held by the cushion or chair. Just taking a moment here to be curious, to explore what it feels like to be in this body. Does it feel warm or cold? Not in the room per se, but in the body. Do you feel any tingling in the hands or feet? Not trying to fix the body here, not trying to change anything about it. There's no perfect posture that would make all of the tension go away. just observing what's here right now. I'd like to invite you to bring that awareness that we've brought to the body and expand it. Expanding it to maybe whatever naturally is drawing your attention right now. Maybe it's the sounds of the room. Maybe it's the feeling. Do you feel air moving past you? Maybe it's the quiet. This room is quite quiet today. And rather than immediately redirecting our attention to every sound or every feeling or touch, or just sort of stay with the curiosity and the investigation. What is your mind finding right now? It might be interesting to notice that we don't always choose what our mind wants to focus on. It's not always a conscious choice. The mind will just do what the mind does, and we're just going to let it. Does this quiet make you feel a little restless? Does your body hold tension that's making you feel like you need to move or stretch? Just letting the mind be curious. And as our mind has maybe found the thing, maybe there's something it's been stuck to, or maybe it's found several things, I want to ask, what happens when we become interested in the experience of being curious? What does it feel like to subtly and gently investigate the curiosity of the mind? And this doesn't mean to create stories, doesn't mean to start planning or shifting or arranging what the mind might be curious about, or even really what our desire to be curious about might be. The mind's curious. And what does it feel like to go closer to that? What does it feel like in the body? Have sensations in the body changed as you get closer to the curiosity? Do you have any sense of resistance getting closer to the investigation of the mind? And again, there's no wrong or right way to be curious, but what does it look like for you? Maybe instead of letting the mind go on its own to try to find a path or to create that story, maybe we can just ask our mind, what is here to be discovered? What is here to be discovered? And then in a way, can you just step out of the way and let the discovery happen? What is here to be discovered? We'll spend the next few moments in silent practice, discovering our minds. The meditation will end at the sound of the bell. Thank you for your practice. Okay. Coming back to the space. I don't know if anyone else's mind, but my mind was clapping for me at the end. It felt really nice. So tonight I'm going to talk about how can we cultivate a space, our life, to help our practice flourish in like everyday life. What can we do to support it outside of this room, outside of sitting on the cushion? And so when I think about sustaining a practice, I don't necessarily think about becoming more disciplined and like figuring out how to meditate every day, because honestly, that's not going to happen. It's really difficult for me. But what I think about is like what keeps bringing me back to the practice, what keeps bringing me back to wanting to learn more, to explore. And so I'm kind of going to discuss those today, because there's certainly going to be seasons in our life where our practice feels really alive, we feel really connected to it, and seasons where we don't. It's often referred to as like a wet or a dry practice. And there are times when we might be meditating regularly or reading or coming to Sangha and coming to group and feeling really deeply connected to the teaching. And there are other times when life gets busy or we're tired and the connection isn't maybe as immediate. And for me, sustaining practice over the years has really been about hasn't been about maintaining the same level of effort, although my mind likes to trick me and say, like, I'm the worst ever because I don't do the most at all times. It's been about learning how to recognize the things that really draw me toward the practice, the things that sort of make me feel something here, and then creating the conditions around that to help my practice grow. And so there's a Pali term that I think is helpful here in today's talk called Dhammachanda, and that means cultivating wholesome desire or aspiration toward the Dharma or toward awakening. And desire, if you've been coming enough, desire in Buddhism is often something we're trying to understand or like loosen our relationship to. Desire meaning like clutching, craving, attachment. But not every desire functions in the same way. There can also be wholesome desire, which is what the Buddha is trying to like move us toward. And we can cultivate that, and that aids in our freedom. And so maybe part of sustaining a practice is learning to notice and nurture those kinds of desires when they appear. And so as we go through today's talk, I want to explore some of the things that light me up in this practice, the things that maybe keep me curious for learning more. And as I'm doing that and talking about my experiences, I'd love if you all internally reflected as well on what those things might be for you. What makes me want to keep exploring? What makes me curious about this practice? And so my own practice didn't begin with some grand commitment to Buddhism. Surprise. I didn't even really know what Buddhism was as like a religion or a spiritual practice. I knew about meditation. I knew that sometimes people like rubbed the Buddha's belly for whatever reason, and that like to be Zen was like cool, like, oh, you're like a hippie, like so Zen, you know. That was the extent of my Buddhist knowledge. And so at first it was really just putting myself in environments where I could explore. And so I had a lot of anxiety in my early 20s. And oftentimes it really spiked at night. I don't know if anyone else has that experience, but my anxiety loves to be like, hey, I'm still here, like right as I'm laying down to bed and close my eyes. And my mind would just start scrolling. I use that as a metaphor, but quite literally scrolling through all of the things that are not necessary right now. The conversation I had 3 years ago, I forgot to eat lunch, do I have to go to the bathroom, like quite literally everything. And so I downloaded the Calm app. I don't know if anyone's ever used that one before. And I would meditate at home, but literally as a way to help me sleep. And I loved it. And at the time, I also like meditated in yoga. And I say meditated because it looks different than what we're doing in here. But we would chant Om sometimes, and then saying Namaste at the end. Which, to be honest, I'm not really sure if I even knew what any of that meant when I was doing it, but it felt good. And it was, you know, connected to the environment. And so it felt good as a collective to be doing those things together. And then I met this guy, Andrew, and he told me that he meditated. And I was like, I do that too. And I would ask him if we could meditate together, like every time we hung out. And he would be like, are you sure? Are you sure? And I'm like, I'm asking. So yes, I am sure. And so we'd often sit together. And the exploration just kind of continued from there. I started listening to podcasts. I began discovering teachers whose way of talking about the Dharma really resonated with me. And slowly over time, there was this sense of like, I want to know more. Like something about this makes sense to me. Something about this connects with how I view life. It feels good. It feels good in my mind. It feels good in my body, and I want to get closer to it. And so eventually that curiosity led to traveling on retreats and intentionally putting myself in environments where the practice could deepen. And I was really in awe of like being in a room with other people for the first time, like practicing together. Like it was COVID times when I went on my first retreat, and so the only person I'd sat with was Andrew, just 2 of us. And that changed to like 30 of us, and then it would get bigger and bigger. And at the time, in the beginning, they were certainly all doing it better than me. Like, you'd look around and their eyes are all closed, and they've really got it, as if you can tell from someone sitting with their eyes closed. But they were, and it was inspiring. It was inspiring to like listen to a teacher talk about the Dharma and like be like, wow, okay. And bonus points, I really enjoyed the people. The people I was meeting in these environments were helping to fuel my desire to learn more, not just the practice. It was nice to hear how people would share how their lives had been changed by the Dharma or by the practice, and to think, wow, maybe mine could too. And now I don't think everyone needs to be going on a retreat to get this feeling. It's nice. But I'd like to think that feeling is encouraged in this room every week. And you all live here. Didn't have to travel many miles or get on a plane in order to get that. But I will say, by spending and extending the amount of time surrounding yourself with the practice and community, at least for me, has been really deeply fulfilling. So maybe that's something that you would want to explore at some point. And now this isn't like the path that the Buddha had laid out to enlightenment. He didn't say, like, get anxiety, download the Calm app, do some yoga, find a Dharma dork, go on retreats, become a Dharma dork. Like, that wasn't, that's not a sutta officially, but it has been my path. It's been my path, and it's one I've continued to follow and build. But for me, the path is much more personal than that, than these like steps. It's sort of noticing, like, where do I feel that internal pull? Where when I hear something, does something ignite in me? It doesn't have to be huge, just something tiny. And so using Wildheart as an example, like maybe something from a Tuesday night talk stays with you all week. That little pull, something that comes up throughout the week that you're like, oh, we talked about that. Or maybe it's a phrase from a meditation. What is my mind discovering? What is here to be discovered? Or may I be at ease? Or maybe you hear a teaching from either one of us and you think, wait, what does that actually mean? Like, I'm actually confused, but that's still a pull. That's still the curiosity. And so maybe it's something that challenges you. Maybe it's something that makes you feel emotional. The Dharma often makes me feel emotional. Or maybe it's simply something that you're curious about and you want to know more. And so instead of moving initially, or immediately rather, moving away from those feelings or thoughts and being like, pleasant, okay, bye, we can turn towards them. That's wholesome desire, moving towards those things that our minds are curious about. One of the first Buddhist books that I read, which if you've been coming here long enough you know, is The Way of Tenderness by Zenju Earthland Manuel. And that book held so many insights for me, like nearly every other page was like a corner turned down, something that I wanted to revisit or come back to. The way she spoke about race in Buddhism, the way she talked about identity as it relates to Buddhism. There were just so many ways that her experience, because The Way of Tenderness is largely about her exploring her identity through the path, resonated with mine and the things that I had questions about or the things that I became curious about. And so one of the things I've learned is that practice can't only live in formal meditation. That's not what the Buddha intended for his teachings. And I think that transformation would only go so far if I sat and practiced, but then never took it anywhere and never did anything with it outside. And that would feel like a huge disservice, I think, to myself, but also to like my relationships and my community. If I can sit here and practice here and explore my mind here, but then when I leave here, all of it stops. And so our Tuesday nights can maybe introduce something new, or they can remind us of something maybe we already know. Places like retreat can bring awareness that maybe a 15-minute meditation cannot. A book can expand our minds on what the teachings say or what living in the practice says. It can open our minds to new things. But when we have to live our lives, so when we leave here after an hour and we go home, we say goodbye at the end of retreats. We have to reintegrate to life, or a book is finished, or you have laundry to do so you didn't get to finish it. Where do we go then? Where can the teachings become tangible? And so I don't know if anyone has experienced this, but I feel like I've definitely shared it before in discussions, or I feel like some rather have shared it before in discussions where something we hear here in this room might come up in like a conversation you were having with someone 2 days later. Or if you're anything like me, when those moments happen, I like internally roll my eyes so big. And I'm like, ugh, the Dharma was right, or like the teaching was right. Here I go, needing to use compassion again. Or any Tuesday when Andrew and I are driving here, needing to be like, ugh, the Buddha told me to have compassion for other people who don't use their blinker. May you be at ease. And it's like the worst, but it's also the best. Because it's like, yeah, that's the point. That's when it's happening in real life. And so we can begin asking, like, what does this teaching actually look like in my life? How do I apply it to what's actually happening, to what I'm experiencing right now? Or what happens if I experiment with it? I don't really know what this would look like, but can I be curious about it? And so that self-reflection has been an important part of sustaining practice for me. I don't constantly need to be like consuming more teachings. Sometimes deepening means staying with one thing. Sometimes it means practicing with the 4 Brahma Viharas or the heart practices for years. Maybe that's what it takes. Because it's not something that you just learn and experience once. It's something you come back to over and over and over again. It's to remember. And that's a gift. It's a gift to have things to be curious about. It's a gift to have things to be exploring in my mind and to apply them to my life. I appreciate that. And that's what makes the Dharma continually compelling for me is it's life. It's about life. And so you can read 10 minutes of a book or listen to part of a talk. You can encounter something that speaks directly to an experience you've had. Experiences that we all have. Suffering, wanting, change, fear, joy, love, loss. It's why there's so many personal stories that we can share related to the teachings, because we've experienced them. And so an important part has also been finding teachers that I connect with. Especially early in my practice, it was important for me to seek out teachers of color, people who have lived experiences like my own, who've helped me sort of hear the teachings differently. And mind you, there are incredible Buddhist teachers and masters from all sorts of lineages and backgrounds whose teachings I deeply respect and resonate with, but sometimes the person communicating a teaching affects our abilities to receive it. And so to hear the Dharma from people who speak about navigating some of the challenges that I've had to navigate and the realities that I've had to experience helped the path feel more accessible to me. It felt like I could hold it in a different way. And I think that's worth paying attention to. Who helps you understand? Whose teachings make you feel curious? Who makes something that previously seemed abstract suddenly feel approachable? And so it doesn't mean you have to connect with every teacher or every book or every way that like Buddhism is presented, but it's about like finding the door that sparks your curiosity and getting closer to it, finding the teacher that said something that resonated and maybe exploring a bit more. And then last, one of the things that have continued to sustain my practice is Sangha and spiritual friendship. So the Pali term for spiritual friendship is often translated as Kalyana Mitata. Sound about right?
Mita. Kalyana Mita.
Well, there's a ta at the end. Anyways, spiritual friendship. And I think there's something really important about recognizing that this practice doesn't happen through individual effort. You can sit on the cushion by yourself all day long. You can become introspective for hours and hours and hours. And liberation is meant to happen through community. And so every time Andrew and I spend time with our Sangha in Nashville, as we're a sister chapter of our Nashville one, we feel like our cups are filled. There's something about being in that community that feels spiritually fulfilling in some way. And we come home with that energy and wanting to give it all back to you. And it's a good feeling. It's good. And so increasingly, I've watched something similar happen in this community, naturally and organically. You all are building this Sangha. Andrew and I did not build it. You all are building it. You know, people meet together after Tuesday nights, find new friends, join the WhatsApp. I've got this event, concert tickets, food, crafts. Like, y'all are doing things. And that's Sangha. That's spiritual community. It doesn't mean you have to be discussing Buddhism while you're doing it in order for it to be a Sangha. It's that you all have had similar curiosities that brought you here and that keep you connected in some way. And so like that, the Dharma begins to move through our relationships. And it makes filling our cup a bit easier. Maybe it makes it easier to come back here on Tuesdays because you know who's going to be here. You know who you're going to get to connect with. And so like that, practice begins to be woven into our communities. You're here, but maybe you invite a friend next week. That friend stays, tell someone else. It's cool to see. Andrew and I often leave here being like, whoa, I can't believe this is happening. And so Ananda, one of the Buddha's attendants, said, Ananda's claim, he says, Venerable Ananda tells the Buddha that good friends and admirable companions are half of the holy life. And the Buddha corrects him by saying, say not so, Ananda. Good friendship is actually the whole of the holy life. It was very important in the Buddha's teachings that Sangha supports our liberation. And so I call myself Buddhist, but I'm really just a baby Buddhist, just a tiny one. Because there's so much I don't know. There's so much I haven't explored, and increasingly I don't really see that as a problem. It's part of what sustains my practice, is still being a student, having a beginner's mind. And so maybe sustaining practice isn't about gripping tightly to the things that we know so that we never lose it. Or maybe it's about creating wider, broader conditions to want to return again. And what does that look like for you? Pay attention to those moments when something inside of you says, there's something here. There's something here with what was said, to how I felt. Something moved within me. I was challenged. And we don't know where it's going. I can't give you the end or what 10 years from now will look like when it comes to my practice. But I want to keep coming back. I want to keep investigating. I want to keep allowing the Dharma to deepen my awareness of myself, of others. And so my final reflection for you all as you go into your weeks are, what is alive in your practice right now? And again, your practice does not need to mean formal seated meditation. Your practice can look very different. What are you curious about? What's one small way you could give that curiosity a little more space? Thank you for your time.